Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're catching us, ball watchers. I'm Jake, and I'm joined here by Justin. This is Ball Watching, usually a St. Louis City SC podcast, but the theme of November, December for us is all around the World Cup and specifically around the men's national team. Obviously, yesterday, Black Friday, U.S. played England to a wish it was 1-1, but a 0-0 draw. That was your prediction going into it, Justin. So you're pretty close. I was not. How are we feeling today? That was a long day.
I'm extremely tired. Jake and I were at shout out Amsterdam. They blocked off the street on Morgan Ford. That place was absolutely packed. We were there for the first game. What was it, Netherlands, Ecuador, at 10 o'clock, and then we were back on my couch. And it was just a very, very long day.
Oh my God, it was, and it's obvious. It's already been a long tournament for some of the teams that you just didn't expect to be struggling or floundering at this point. And not to say that they're uncomfortable, but for us, things got a little bit interesting on early morning on Black Friday when Iran took down Wales 2-0. Not a shocking result. I didn't catch much of the game, obviously, it being 4 a.m. and after Thanksgiving, but it didn't look like Wales was really up to the task. Iran did have to rely on 2 late goals to get by them. But Wales also lost their goalie to a red card, so that could play into an interesting thing to think about for their matchup against England. But Iran was the better side, far, far away the better side. And for anyone that was overlooking Iran coming into the tournament, I think we tried to urge you not to. I think everyone still kind of sees them as the weakest team in our group. I think Wales is the weakest team in the group, and Iran is going to be a crazy matchup given what transpired yesterday. But crazy to see Wales go down, and now you've got a really tight group. England on 4, U.S. on 2, Iran on 3, and Wales on 1. So it's anyone's taking come Tuesday. But otherwise, outside of our group, Brazil and Portugal were tested. I know Brazil was against the resilient Serbian side. They gave them a lot of trouble, and it kind of came down a little bit late there. And Portugal survived Ghana. I would say that Ghana, to me, was the better team throughout that game. So what you're seeing, the theme of this year is that it's just not an easy climb for a lot of these contenders that you expect to be. Even France is playing right now, and I can take a look at the score. They're up 2-1, and Denmark's no bad team, but it's just not been a walk in the park for a lot of these teams, which is a good sign for us, I think.
It's the World Cup. I think everybody, it's completely different than like a regular friendly. And if we look at some of these games, you're saying some of these matchups, like how does Saudi Arabia take down Argentina? It's solely because it's World Cup. It's the biggest stage. Everybody's getting amped up and anything can happen. And I think, like you said, it's exciting for us and extremely nerve-wracking.
It is. And just some close to home news before we jump into the game yesterday with England and the U.S. Group A is the one you want to keep a lot of an eye on right now, at least for the immediate future, because if we do end up qualifying out of our group and going to the round of 16, Group A's participants are where we would go to. And Group A, Qatar, host country, gone. They are eliminated formally. And what's left is an interesting roundup at the top. Netherlands and Ecuador are both tied at 4 points and tied on all tiebreakers currently. So it'd be, I think, a drawing of lots is what they call it at this point, would be the tiebreaker for those two teams. It's not going to happen like that. Senegal is at 3 points right below them. And like we said, Qatar is gone. So it comes down to their last match day as well. Netherlands takes on Qatar, and Ecuador, Senegal really for that second spot, essentially. So to keep your eye on those matchups, those will be on Monday prior to our game against Iran and Wales against England. And those will be likely the team we're taking on. I'd say most likely if we qualify, probably the second place winner from that group. So at this point, I think it would be Ecuador. If we're judging the first 2 games off of their quality, I think Ecuador would be number 2, Netherlands number 1.
Yeah. So so what is a drawing of lots? Is it like flipping a coin? I mean, there's no way it's going to go to that.
But it's a person manual process. Like there's an actual, it's kind of like a flipping of a coin. It's literally a ancient practice, and they only have it for these types of things where the numbers wouldn't have anything to help us with. So I'd have to look at what the drawing of lots actually means, but it's tremendously unfair because it's just luck. There's no there's no who you are, what you've done. It's just luck at that point.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into our initial thoughts. Yeah, perfect. What were your thoughts on this game, Jake?
Before this game, I remember in our primer, I told all our listeners and you that this was Greg's capstone. And if I am Greg's teacher or his TA grading him on this, I think I would give him a B plus or an A minus. I think he approached this game like a tactical mastermind, made evident by the results we saw. And he went against some people's thoughts on roster changes, mine included. And he actually really ended up going toe to toe with England. I don't think we thought there might be a little bit, maybe a mix, or we just sit back and absorb pressure, wave after wave of this fluid and dynamic English attack. That is not what transpired whatsoever. So I give Greg a big kudos. That was an excellently coached game with the approach. We'll talk about in-game management as we get a little bit deeper into this. But that was my initial thought. Stoked for us. I think it was a great result. If you'd have told me we were going to tie England on that, I would have been very, very excited. I think that means a lot to our community of soccer here in the States.
I think, yes, his approach, I'd probably give him a B, a flat B. Yeah, pretty good. Like you said, we'll get into the in-game stuff. Completely different grade, in my opinion, when it comes to that. But like I said, Jake did call it. Haji Wright started. And I thought he played pretty well. So, yeah, I had to get that little shout out there as a very random one. I originally didn't even think he should be on the team, much less starting against the biggest game of our history, essentially. But going into the game, I thought Greg did well. We're still undefeated against England in the World Cup. And, like, if you were to say that going into this group, it would sound great. Yeah, we still have a huge game on Tuesday. But, the game itself, though, if you want to get into some highlights, Jake.
Yeah. One of my quick highlights before we get into some of our players is just seeing the English headlines across the pond this morning and throughout today. These people are just suffering, and they were booing their own team yesterday. You think our fan base as the U.S. men's national team is a little bit toxic. England is far and away much, much, much worse than we are in terms of the fan base and all the tweets and just people tearing every bit of news apart and pretty negative overall. That was fun for me to see today because they were talking us down beforehand, and it's always nice to come up on top as the underdog. But for me, a couple of immediate highlights stick out, and I'll kind of just speak to my top two. I guess not my top two, but the first two that I thought about is I thought, Matt, I'm going to start from the back. Let's go from defense up to the forwards and the offense. Matt Turner was not called on as often as I think we thought he was going to be yesterday. When he was up to the task. And I really think about that one strong hand save he made, I think towards the end of the first half. And really his distribution with his feet, people knock him for his feet, myself included. I think he's really rounded that skill set out. His distribution was on point yesterday. He scared the living crap out of me when he dribbled out of the box right towards the end of the game. Like, never do that again, Matt. I don't care how confident you are with your feet, but I was really impressed by him and just the defense in general. Harry Kane, there was nothing. They had 2, maybe 3 looks at goal. I think our chances were of higher quality than theirs. And if you'd have told me that walking into this, I'd have been like, no way. That we made Saka, we made Harry Kane. They looked rudimentary. They looked like normal players. They didn't look like $100 million players.
And looking and still starting with the back line, Walker Zimmerman, I thought played incredible. 88% pass accuracy. I saw it. And also he held Harry Kane to not even having a shot on goal, which is massive. And yes, they had 7 shots total, 3 on goal. We had 10 shots with 1 on goal. So yeah. Technically the Pulisic off the crossbar wasn't on goal, but that left foot rocket rocked. I was so happy to see that he's kind of coming in and he can do a little bit too much at sometimes, but that was an incredible chance.
And I'll give you the McKennie point too. Yeah. You go to McKennie. You were the guy that said McKennie was going to start. He was going to play. So I'll let you revel in that spotlight for a second. You can talk about Weston.
I would say he was. I know he didn't get man of the match. I thought Weston McKennie played incredible. I thought his distribution was great. He did well at defense. He got forward. He was even dangerous in the air a little bit. So yes, I was extremely happy to see him start. And I thought he played very well.
Another person, my man of the match for the day was Tyler Adams. I know they gave it to Christian Pulisic. And to me, Tyler Adams has been our most consistent performer and at a very high level for the last 2 games in the World Cup so far. I was actually reading an article that, he was leaving the stadium yesterday after the game, and he was walking through security, and they actually, the buzzer went off. And so they had him empty out his pockets. And they found his keys, his phone, but they also found Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice in there as well. So those guys, man, these guys are $100 million players out there. Looked simple. They looked like they didn't even belong. They were Casper the Friendly Ghost out there. Like it was crazy to look back on that. Like those guys are some of the highest valuable players in the world. And Tyler Adams, a guy who couldn't buy minutes in the Bundesliga and is now at Leeds making a huge impact at their club. He might have raised his stock the most significantly in this game, period. Like, would you have taken those guys over Tyler Adams beforehand? Yeah, you would have. But now you look at this game, he absolutely bullied them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And he did it safely. We got out of there with what? What did we have? We had 15 fouls, but no yellows, which is huge for us, knowing that we're not missing any of our guys going into that Iran game. And Tyler Adams, like you said, I still think he is probably also a man of a match all the time. I mean, Pulisic with the shot and being the big name, and Pulisic was very attacking and looked great, but Tyler Adams is just so steady and just quiet. And that's what we need him to do in that position.
And the last two things I'll mention on that is I thought Yunus Musa played a much better game. You saw a lot more from him. And when you didn't, I think it was a good thing because I think he was just doing the simple things right. He was making great turns out of pressure, connecting passes. He was a much bigger presence in this game yesterday. Back to your point on Pulisic, I thought his set piece delivery was much better yesterday as well. We couldn't make anything out of them, unfortunately, but I still think his deliveries were far and away better than they were against Wales, which is obviously good. And the last thing I'll mention, I'm sure you agree with me, is the big highlight for me is that we're showing progression game to game. Like we came out against Wales. I think we were the better team. We deserved more in that game. We come out against England. We take steps up. We're not staying the same level. We're not retreating. We're taking steps forward in our progression. And it makes me excited to think that this team's really just kind of growing into it a little bit. And I think, who knows, if we could get into the knockout rounds and get past Iran, which we'll talk briefly about in a second here, is who knows what's possible if we keep showing that progression. I mean, these are young guys. They're learning. This is their first time getting this experience. So I'm actually really excited about that as well.
I am as well. But I will say, before we get too high, let's go through some of the lowlights. And one that still scares me, Jake, and we've seen a couple people mentioning it to us as well, is we have to win on Tuesday, and we just can't finish the ball. I don't get it. What is that? So we have one goal now in our last four games. In our last four games, you count the two friendlies coming into this as well. And it's just like, and yesterday we've only had 2 shots on goal in these past 2 games as well, total. And that's scary to me. I don't know. And I don't know who's going to be that guy. I know we haven't seen Jesus Ferreira yet, but it's definitely not going to be Haji Wright. Yeah. Yes, Josh can get something on there. And the other thing, and we'll get into, I guess that kind of leads us into it, is game management. I think one guy that could give us a goal, Gio Reyna. Well, I don't know what's going on there. I know you sent me that tweet. Who was talking about that it's like, it's not an injury thing. He's healthy.
Yeah, Eric Winalda was talking about this on a different podcast. So he's a U.S. men's national team former player. He's now a pundit as well. I forget for what network specifically, but we got a listener question around this one as well. I believe that was from Joey about, should Gio, and this is everyone's question now, should Gio have been subbed on earlier? And I think all of us are on the team. Yeah. I mean, he gives a whole different look. He brings a lot more creativity, and especially in that game when we kind of decided we were going to go for it, he would have been a great asset to have on the field. And he came on, but 7 minutes is like, what are you supposed to do with that? That is such a short time in a soccer game against a team like England. So I think there's more there in terms of controversy. It sounds like Eric is pretty connected with Claudio, Gio's dad. Claudio's a national legend for our national team. And he's been having to be consoled because he's so upset for his son as to what's going on. And there's 2 stories that are running along this parallel that just aren't matching up. Gio is, I'm healthy, I'm ready to play. And Berhalter is, he's picked up an injury. We're nursing this slight issue, but he should be good to go. And I'm hearing, and I'm sure people have seen on Twitter as well, that there might have been a mix-up in terms of there might have been some disagreements or some conversation that went south between those two, Gio and Greg, that's resulted in this situation as it is right now. Because I think he was promised and was thinking he'd get a lot more involvement than he's gotten so far. And I think we're all clamoring for it. So I think we're kind of owed an answer. Like the fact that this controversy surrounding us is just distracting to me. And it's got to be distracting for the players. And I just want to get it resolved. I really want them out on the field. I hope whatever happened, they can put behind them, because it's kind of getting a little ridiculous now.
It's extremely ridiculous. And I still say, I know we both thought he would start. I think he still needs to start in this Iran game. I don't, like you said, how are you supposed to get into the flow of a game in the 83rd minute when you're subbed on? And I mean, also another one with that, what the hell is Shaq Moore doing on our soccer field? Why? I understand that Des is on a yellow, but Shaq Moore is where we're going with that one. I'll never get that either. So
Yeah,
those are the in game, like the tactical things from Greg. One thing also not as important soccer wise. What was Greg wearing? What was it?
Yeah.
States United. It was like a gray T-shirt. Like, yeah, you don't have to be wearing like a suit. That's fine, but that's no swag. I don't get it. Like, it's the biggest stage and probably the most watched US game in history, and you're gonna put that T-shirt on. I was wearing something cooler yesterday. I don't understand it. I was very confused.
Yeah. No, the stylist is gonna step it up for him because that's just not a good step forward for the team. It's just not a good look. That's hilarious. Yeah, no, Shaq Moore, we talked about it when the roster came out. I can't believe he was included, and now he's played minutes in the World Cup. You know, I think he acquitted himself okay, but I would just rather take any of our other subs over him that are at that position. So that was shocking to me.
If you think about it, Jake, Shaq Moore has more minutes in the World Cup than Gio Reyna.
It's
make awful. Make that an article. What does that even mean? Send Shaq Moore home. I mean, he did nothing. I mean, he did fine. But he's just nothing there. I don't know what he's like when you're like, oh, we need something out of this game, like a more defensive team or more attacking. That man brings nothing on either side of that. So I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, he doesn't. I know. Yeah, you brought it up. I still think our two biggest lowlights is it's going to bite us in the butt in this no number 9 situation. We have no one that can score goals. No one that's just a proven finisher that's lethal when the ball drops to their foot. That's going to bite us, and we're going to have to show it in this game that we have someone that can do that because we have to score goals to win the game, and we cannot do anything but win this game to go forward. So that's to be a big thing for me. And the in-game management, we kudos Greg for his approach going into this game. The in-game management across both this one and Wales has been just nowhere close to what I would anticipate if I had those resources and I was the coach there. Like, it's very sketchy. I don't know what he's doing. Like, Jordan Moore's coming on over some of these people, and he brings on a very defensive sub and like Acosta in the last game when clearly we kind of want the win against Wales. And in this game, these guys were way too late to come onto the pitch, like way too late. They're not going to make an impact in that time. And Aronson has got to be revving his engine, ready to give it all for the national team. And this guy can't buy a minute on Greg's radar right now. So it's the end game management is what I'm the most sus of right now for Greg. And I really hope he turns that around because we're going to need that.
Let's get into that. Reality check.
Yeah.
What do you think? So, I mean, yes, I would say a lot of people are like, oh, we tied. But it's like, you tell me you go into this game and get it. You tell me ahead of the group stage that, like, before the World Cup started, that we tie England. Our odds are looking great. Yes, a win would have been awesome because now we're going into Tuesday, and Tuesday is a must win. Absolutely. Like, we literally can't do anything else if we tie. We're not getting through. So I'd say, yes, great result versus England. Looking ahead, I'm still very cautiously optimistic against Iran, but I don't know that you have a stat in here that U.S. is now still just 2-7-6 in World Cup play over the last 2 decades. 2 wins. And I mean, that's against Algeria in 2010 and Ghana in 2014. We can't score. And that is very worrisome to me.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, to put it back into context, take a step out of the World Cup. Us drawing England at this World Cup is a phenomenal achievement in and of itself. So we can celebrate that and be happy about that. But going into this Iran game and just thinking about our World Cup history in the last 2 decades, we're a team, and you and I even mentioned about our most memorable moments in the World Cup so far. Like, that wasn't this huge lopsided win that we just crapped on some team. That wasn't this really gutsy win that we had back in 2014. These are like celebrated ties and almosts that were really cool. That could have been insane, but they were still really cool. And I think if we were kind of used to being happy with those results, and Tuesday, you got another thing coming. If we don't score goals and win this game, there's nothing to celebrate. This will be a huge blown opportunity. I'm not going to be too revisionist here, but this result against England makes the Wales result a lot more frustrating. Because if you think, and I'm not going to say that everything happens the same way, but we take 3 against Wales and we take a draw against England, we're at 4 points. We're, I think, tied with England at the top of the group. They'll have goal differential on us, but we're looking a lot better heading into this Iran game than we are right now. So it's just like that's our reality, is that we celebrate these things because we've been the underdog in almost all these World Cups so far. But at some point, that's got to change, and we got to put our mindset on winning. And that's the only way to captivate the broader audience in the U.S. is put a team on the field that wins games, wins trophies against really good teams. That's how it's going to have to be for us eventually here. And Tuesday's got to be the start.
Couldn't agree more. We're going home if we don't win. So that's it. That's really what it comes down to. Let's get into let's get into some listener questions.
We worked through a couple of them already. I think around review of Greg's sub so far. I think Justin and I are both pretty let down so far by how he's proven himself in the end game management. We had a question from Joey around how Gio should he have been subbed on earlier. Yes, it's a resounding yes from both of us. Something's going on over there, and I really hope it gets resolved soon. And the final one we just kind of touched on too is how concerning was our inability to finish or last two games for an upcoming Iran game. It's a must win. It's scary. I'm definitely scared. Like, someone's going to have to step up. These half chances that we're getting, one of those has got to find the back of the net. Like, McKennie misses that one on the half volley yesterday against England, and we're like, oh, so close. Like, no, like that's got to go in the net. Like that's got to go on Tuesday, and that's got to go more normally. Like, we have to be lethal with everything we're giving against Iran, because they're not going to give us much. They're going to pack that box. They don't need to win. A draw is absolutely fine for them. So we're going to have to really, really try to pick the lock of their D, because they're going to be setting up with a low block, a lot of men behind the ball, and we're going to get really frustrated. We're going to have to take that one glimmer they give to us and make it worth it.
I didn't think about that. That is, they will go through with a tie, assuming that Wales doesn't absolutely just smack England. Right. But that is extremely concerning. I will say it'll probably be a somewhat similar game to the Wales game, and they're gonna pack the box even more, like you said. So we're gonna have a ton of possession, I think, and they're just gonna try to bounce on the counter if they even need to. Really, they're just gonna park the bus, and I like that. I'm fine with that, because I think that's just gonna mean we're gonna have a ton of shots, a ton of chances. So let's actually finish one, please, guys.
And going into the final thoughts, it's honestly the perfect opportunity for the team to show them that the weakness that we constantly get battered for, that we're not able to score in the big games, that we just play defense. We got to be able to flip that on its head on Tuesday. So my final thoughts is that, people were really happy to draw yesterday, and I was too. But when it comes to what we're doing for qualification, our chances are only 38% to advance to the round of 16 if we beat Iran. So it's not like it's the most great and rainbows and unicorns picture for us right now. We have our work cut out for us. And then we told you how the table looks right now. Iran is in second, like firmly in second, and Wales is firmly in fourth. So it's going to be close. And we could even beat Iran. Let's just say we rout them and England suffers against Wales. We could feasibly take first as well in the group. So there's everything to play for, which if you'd have told me that going into match day 3, I'd have been pretty excited. We have everything to go into our last game, which is technically the one that we've always knew that we had to win. So nothing's changed for us. We have to go beat Iran.
I'd say we're not going to win the group. I'm just going to be straight up, Jake. There's no chance. England's going to get at least. They have to, and yes, they are firmly in first with 4 points, but they want to get first in the group as well. So if they tie, they were leaving the door open for us when it comes to that. Or if Iran beats us, then England would be second in the group. So England's going to be going balls to the wall as well. That's going to be a really fun game. It's at the exact same time as our game as well. So that's kind of what's cool coming up with these games, and we'll do a little bit more of a primer for that game. But they're going to be playing at the exact same time, so we don't know what we're going to need to be doing. It's not like we see the Wales Iran game from 4 a.m. before our game yesterday, and we know what we need to do. It's going to be at the same time, but extremely excited regardless.
So much more to come. We're gonna record an Iran U.S. primer for you all and release that tomorrow, so you can listen with the rest of your weekend or on your drive to work on Monday as we get back. And then Tuesday's the big day, so we're only a couple more days out from it, and then we can kind of sit back and breathe for a little bit. Hopefully, if we get our work done and let everything else play out for us, because I think Saturday would become the day of that first match that we could play in if we do qualify out. So let's just hope the boys get it done. They hit training, they put the work in, and we can do it. And I think we're optimistic about it, but Justin and I are going to spend some time and dig into some Iran tactics and bring you all a good primer on that here and release it sometime by tomorrow. But hope you all enjoyed yourselves yesterday. It was an American holiday like none other. I have not heard viewership reports yet. Well, maybe I'll try to look for those for the Iran primer, but I assume it was probably one of the most watched, if not the most watched game of all time. So we're both excited. We had a good little time yesterday, and hopefully it's just the first of many for the next week or so here. So very excited here at Ball Watching. Thank you all for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Shoot us DMs, but your questions, things you want us to cover during this. This has been a blast covering some of your questions. They're all things that we think about as well as fans, but appreciate you all for listening, and you'll hear from us again tomorrow.
Yes, sir. See you guys then.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.